I have exciting news for you. From the week of December 5th until the 15th, you will have the opportunity to win an all access lifetime membership pass to the personal development school to give yourself the gift of healthy relationships this holiday season. We will be selecting five lucky winners to receive special prizes. And all you need to do is to be subscribed to our YouTube channel, like this video, and then click the link in the description and register your email in order to be entered to win. There are also bonus points for those who comment below on how a lifetime membership to our school could really benefit them or impact their lives. So make sure you check your email on December 16th to see if you win. Again, we'll have five winners that get all sorts of different access and prizes to PDS. And if you don't hear back from us, please don't worry. Everyone who enters will also still receive a small gift from myself and the personal development school as a thank you for being a valuable member of the PDS community. And all of the details are listed in the description of this video below. Best of luck. So, our attachment styles affect our relationships more than just about everything. They affect our ability to have boundaries or lack thereof. They affect our ability to know our needs, communicate in a healthy way at all. They affect what fears we bring in from past relationships, including our attachment relationships in childhood. And of course, when we have a different attachment style than somebody else, we have totally different expectations about all of those things and how they should be in relationships. So, knowing somebody's attachment style ahead of time and really being able to assess what attachment patterns we think they might be bringing into a relationship gives us the ability to navigate the relationship so much more effectively and also understand somebody else's point of view, what expectations they might have, what core wounds or fears or insecurities they might have, what needs they have. And so in this video, I'm going to take you through 8 major signs that your partner or loved one, because it can be a friendship that you're looking into, a family relationship, 8 major signs that this person is fearful avoidant, aka disorganized attachment style, and what to do about some of these different dynamics that may be showing up. So, first and foremost, one of the biggest signs in the early stages of relationships that somebody is an FA is that they are very present. Fearful avoidance sometimes seem like they're like looking into your soul. They tend to be very, very present, really engaged, really listening. And part of this is because fearful avoidance in their childhood and upbringing had to be really good at reading between the lines. And that was their attachment strategy, being really good at picking up on changes in a mood, change in a pattern. So they get really tuned in. They are essentially hyper attuned to others. And in the early stages of relationships, that can be something that really draws other people in. And then obviously there can be other dynamics that the fearful avoidant brings into the relationship later on that can polarize that. And that brings me to number two. That presence and availability and attunement the fearful avoidant expresses in person, they sometimes have a difficult time sustaining that like expectation of how you saw them outside of being in person. The big reason being that fearful avoidants are basically hyper vigilantly attuned to other people all the time. They tend to bring that with them everywhere, which means they're not so great with other things. They tend to be really, really available to what's in front of them. So you may find, especially as a relationship evolves and grows, that a fearful avoidant at first was super available over text, over phone. And then over time, you may see that that doesn't really show up to the same degree because they tend to be very, very invested in everything that they do and one thing in front of them. And they tend to be very attuned to those things as well. Number three, fearful avoidants have thinking patterns where they tend to question things a lot. They often want to know the why behind things. They want to be able to unpack the details of things. They want context. They want transparency. They want to really understand what's going on, usually from a human behavioral perspective with other people. Because this tends to help them feel safer in their environment and in their ability to connect with others. They tend to assume chaos at a subconscious level and assume worst case scenarios unless they have a good understanding of a situation and what might happen. So they will try to get this neat map by questioning things a lot, really trying to gather as much information as possible. And we may also see another big theme with their thinking patterns is that, especially until a fearful avoidant does some work on themselves, they tend to have a lot of all or nothing thinking patterns. They tend to think, have opinions, ideas, all of these different things in extremes, in polarities, the vast majority of the time. Number four, we might find that a fearful avoidant person, sort of mirroring off of those thinking patterns, they tend to be pretty intense. So even if they are sweet and kind and all these different things on sort of the surface level, beneath the surface, they tend to be very all or nothing people. Why? Because it reflects their all or nothing thinking patterns. And we know research tells us very conclusively that the more all or nothing, the more traumatic experiences a person is exposed to, especially the more chaos, the more worst case scenarios they've actually lived through and seen, the more their subconscious mind tends to assume those things onto their environment. It's like we see and interact with our world through the lens of our subconscious mind. And so we tend to assume these things will happen in the future. And of course, that can lead to more intense coping mechanisms, that can lead to more intense creature comforts or relationships to them, that can lead to more intense emotional reactions, that can lead to more intense boundaries when boundaries finally do go up with fearful avoidance, that can lead to more intense changes that are sudden. And you may see as a result of that, like a lot of like sudden and intense happenings in a person's life, because literally at the very root of things is our thinking. The way we think and perceive the world influences our behavior and our decisions. And so, until those all or nothing patterns are more corrected, you'll see those behaviors that really shape a person's life across time. Number five, you may see a history of roller coaster-y relationships. You may see a lot of ups and downs because fearful avoidance, they tend to like love, but fear love at the same time. They get programmed because of the chaos in which they attach to others growing up. They get programmed to think love is great and it's something I want, and it terrifies me simultaneously. And so you'll see that gets brought in. There's these competing stored associations around what love and connection is. And you'll see that fearful avoidance, especially as they start to really bond with somebody, they kind of re-enter the roller coaster. As soon as they've attached, we may see fearful avoidance really show up incredibly well in the dating stage because they're good at like developing a bond and getting to know somebody and connecting. But when it comes to actually attaching to somebody and really building that bond and letting somebody in and being vulnerable and making commitments, these are all things that will stir up some of those fears of a fearful avoidance. So we may see a big shift and transition once more attachment and vulnerability has happened into a more roller coaster type of dynamic. Number six, you will see that fearful avoidants tend to carry a lot of limiting beliefs about trusting people, about loving people, about relationships lasting long term, about people being safe. And you may hear it reflected in their language. So I'm assuming, like, as you're watching this video, that you are trying to get to know somebody's attachment style because it's fairly early, right? Or you're trying to get to know somebody's attachment style that's a friend or a family member. And you'll generally see that it's like in the way they talk about relationships. They can be like kind of cynical, or in the way they talk about things lasting, or in the way they talk about commitment or trust. They might have these sort of like comments that they make saying things along the lines of, oh, you can't really trust people though, or yeah, you can make a commitment, but you don't know things aren't going to change long term. And you may hear this in the language. I would hear this a lot working with clients. And I would also hear this a lot working with people who are dating fearful avoidance that were my clients, where they would say, this person, who I'm dating, they make these comments sometimes. What should I make of that? And really, it's a reflection of somebody's limiting beliefs or wounds around, what they've experienced in the past and how they're bringing that into their present and future. By the way, if you want to do a deep dive into a course that literally covers everything about fearful avoidance and how they are at all stages of relationships, like dating stage, like that early stage, honeymoon stage, power struggle stage, and every other stage after, or the three other stages after, which are the stability, commitment, and bliss stages. If you want to know like how to navigate the relationship with an FA, how to unpack the different, pain points, challenges, what to do, what to work on, how to communicate in each stage, what's likely to come up, that roadmap is a course you can check out for free for 7 days. You can download everything. You can like really get organized and see into a lot of the fearful avoidance patterns. And you can do that using the link in the description below. So number seven, fearful avoidants are very interesting in the fact that they tend to have these like, these conflicting needs on a surface level. Like we may think that things are conflicting, but they're not really if you really boil it down a little bit more. And one really big example for this as number seven is that Fearful avoidants want like really deep connection and a lot of closeness, but they really want independence and freedom. And at a surface level, we're like, what? Those are opposite things, but they're really not mutually exclusive. Like it's not one or the other. They really want that like depth and connection, but they also want to feel like, and I can do my own thing if I want to. I can have my independence. I can have my space. And they really want like both polarities of relationships. And again, that reflects like the polarities of their personality, those extreme, opposing parts relative to like the all or nothing thinking patterns, the needs that get developed out of those types of thinking patterns, etc. And last but not least, number 8, we may see fearful avoidance be quite boundaryless, be quite codependent, very enmeshed, really take on people's feelings. And then eventually, when they feel like they've had enough, they may feel like they're overgiving and under receiving because they struggle to actually ask for help or lean on other people. Then you might see the exact opposite, where they have really strong boundaries. But those boundaries are motivated and enforced by anger, not assertiveness. Healthy assertiveness means being able to just have boundaries in everyday life without being upset or frustrated, just knowing your yeses and nos in real time. But we may see instead with fearful avoidance that they're quite boundaryless and then all of a sudden they really crack down. And I would encourage, if anybody's listening to this who is a fearful avoidant, to notice that setting boundaries from anger is not effective boundary setting. It actually represents that you don't feel comfortable asserting yourself in small ways throughout the course of your day or week. So, definitely something to hone in on and work on as well. And hopefully, this all makes sense. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being here. Let me know questions you have down below. And if you're enjoying this channel and our content, please like, share, and subscribe.